Joining us now is Sheri Daye, the host of Spear Gun Hunter on the Outdoor Channel, a program that I discovered, and my daughter and I do not miss it. Sheri, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike.
Now, you've been spearfishing for over a decade. You do free diving, which is when you hold your breath, just with a snorkel, right? And also regular diving with scuba gear.
That's right. I started on scuba, though, and then heard about people doing it by breath holding and became interested in that about 6 years ago, and so I've been doing that ever since.
And you hold many records, including a 179-pound tuna that you shot with a spear gun. We're going to talk to you about all kinds of great stuff. Spear gun hunting, definitely a growing sport in the great outdoors pursuits.
It is growing, yes. There are many ways that I can tell. There are classes that are offered, and by the number of clubs, the number of tournaments. So I would say definitely it is gaining popularity.
When I watch your program, it's kind of like just peeking in on a bunch of friends going on a great trip. It's not very scripted. It's not very polished. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just kind of that cinema verite where I'm just part of what's happening. I really like that.
No, you're exactly right. That's, the producer's goal is to film one per day. And out of 50 shows, we've achieved that 48 times out of 50. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're just filming what goes on in a regular day.
Now, you talked about, you began scuba diving and then went to free diving in your spear gun hunting pursuits. When did you discover the art of hunting fish with a spear gun?
Well, that was about probably actually about 15 years ago, and I was scuba diving with a friend, and he was looking for fish to spear, and I was helping him spot, the edible type fish. And he wouldn't give me a turn on the spear gun, so I got mad, and I went out and bought my own, and I've been spearfishing ever since.
You've kind of showed him, didn't you?
I did. He's still a friend, but he reminds me of that day every time I see him.
It wasn't for me, right? Well, your passion for diving and spearfishing has taken you to some of the most beautiful places on Earth. What are some of the most special to you, the best locations for you?
Oh, it's hard to pick because everyone is so cool, but in different ways. I loved Hawaii because it's clear, beautiful water. The fish actually are very spooky over there, so it's challenging, but it's beautiful. And I also love Mexico just because, that's where you can get the big yellowfin tunas, and that's always, heart-pounding excitement when you're going after big blue water game.
Now, how does a woman your size, you work out, I'm sure, but 179-pound tuna could definitely take you for a ride, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, when you're going for big game like that, you use a line and buoy system. So it's not brute force, that you're trying to use to pull them up. So there's a float at the top. Sometimes if you get one that's big, it takes the whole float system down, and you have to tread water and wait for it to pop back up. But, it's kind of like fishing, I think, where you pull some of the line in, and then it gains some strength or gets a second wind and takes it all back down, and you just keep doing that for as long as it takes till you tire it out.
One thing that's always on the mind of people watching Sheri Daye and her crew spear gun hunting, there's blood in the water. We've all seen Jaws. It's instilled in our minds. What about the sharks in the area?
Well, yeah, that comes along with the territory in spearfishing. It's not like everybody thinks. I think people have an irrational fear of sharks. Well, we all do. I guess it's, instinct. But
right.
I like to make the analogy that they're like dogs. Some dogs will bite you. The majority will not. And so you just have to be aware of them and respect them. Not as some people, they continue shooting when there's sharks in the water. That's just asking for it.
Right.
So, you do what you can to minimize the risk. You see them, and a lot of times they're there, but they're not threatening you. You learn to read their body language. You learn which species are really the ones that are dangerous. And the more you do it, it's just, again, instinct takes over, and when you have to be extra careful or not. But it's not as bad as people imagine.
Had any close encounters with sharks or other fish as well?
I've had, I would say, 2 bad encounters. Well, one extra bad. I'll tell you about my extra bad encounter. It was with a big hammerhead, and I never saw him coming, and that's what scares me the most, is not the shark that I see, because they know when you're making eye contact and facing them. They read your body language too, but I never saw this one coming, and I was holding a fish in my hand, and I was on the surface, and I looked to the side, and all I see is the underside of the hammer lifting up into the sky. Oh. And I didn't even have time to throw the fish. I actually had to, put my hand on it, and somehow not like I pushed him over, but I pushed myself under more, like that, And then I threw the fish, and unfortunately, he didn't go after the fish. He kept coming in on me, and I kept poking with the butt of my spear gun. I kept just poking him off, and anyway, I lived to tell about it.
Now, what's the most difficult fish to hunt?
The most difficult, well, in Florida, I think it would be like the black grouper or the mutton snapper. They're both real spooky. They don't stay around. You can't really use their curiosity against them that much, which you can with most fish. If you lay still, that's the trick to spearfishing, is to get the fish to come to you. Usually you don't try to chase anything, but those fish are very spooky, very wary. If you're talking in all the world, I would say it has to be the moo. It's spelled M-U in Hawaii. As soon as you get anywhere near them, the whole school just starts running in the other direction. They're just unbelievably spooky. We're
talking with Sheri Daye, the host of Spear Gun Hunter on the Outdoor Channel. The new season begins in January. You've just finished wrapping that up. Give us the rundown on how people can get started hunting fish with a spear gun.
Well, the first thing I tell people is you have to get comfortable in the water. Whether you're going to be scuba diving, get certified, take classes, and get comfortable just scuba diving, or if you're going to free dive, I suggest also taking a class, because there are some safety issues, and you can learn a lot how to improve very quickly if you take a class. And just dive for a while and get comfortable with that. Observe the fish, and so forth, before you ever pick up a spear gun. And then when you feel that you are comfortable, then I would start picking up a spear gun and targeting the easier fish, and just work your way up.
Your main focus is spear gun hunting, but are there other great outdoors activities that you participate in?
I love everything about the outdoors. I especially love the ocean. But I just tried stone crabbing for the first time last weekend. I never even knew these things. I eat them in restaurants, but
right.
I never even noticed. There's little potholes. If you go to certain areas off Miami in Florida, there are little holes. And I went with someone that knew what he was doing, and he just reach his hand in there and pull out the crab, and it was just such a blast. So, I just love anything new about nature. It's amazing as much as I've been in the water that I had never even known about that. So there's always something new to discover, and it's great.
The last time I went snorkeling was in a reef outside of Key West, and it really is like stepping onto another planet. It's complete escape,
Yes. Exactly. A whole nother world.
We're talking with Sheri Daye, the host of Spear Gun Hunter on the Outdoor Channel. A wonderful aspect of your program is the feast on the catch that takes place on the show. Being a seafood lover, what's your favorite fish for the plate?
I like hog snapper. It's a very white, very tender meat. And by the way, it's one that you usually can only get spearfishing because they don't bite at a line and hook. So it's a real delicacy. You don't see them too much in restaurants or at the seafood market.
Is that so? They're not an easy fish to angle, huh?
They're not at all. It's possible. I've heard of it. People getting them with shrimp, but mostly they pick at mollusks in the sand.
Okay.
So it's not something a fisherman can usually get.
You hold the 2006 Nationals Freedive Spearfishing Tournament women's title, and also the Spearboard Open. Let's talk about some of these major tournaments in the world of spear gun hunting.
Yeah, there's quite a few. There's some. There's nationals, which if you're free diving, first you start by competing in a local club, and then you go to states, and then you go to nationals. Actually, there's another level. You go to worlds, and actually the Europeans are the best free diving spear fishermen in the world. They always win. They're just at another complete different level. They're sponsored and so on and so forth, but. That's what a lot of people aspire to, is to go to worlds.
How about you?
Then there's, I qualified to go in Venezuela a couple years ago, and that year they did not hold the women's division.
Okay.
It's kind of spotty whether they do or don't hold women, so that was kind of disappointing. But I might try again.
Okay, we're rooting for you. Now, you're a former ballerina. Does that come into play? You're training there when you're underneath the water?
Yeah, I don't know if it comes into play, but it's certainly I feel that it gave me a base for for being athletic and working out and discipline.
Right.
That sports require. Yeah.
And the gracefulness and the display of a ballet is quite like the underwater extravagant, show that you're taking in. So
Yeah, you're right.
there's something metaphorically there. Now, you also work in the corporate world. Can you give us some background on that?
Yeah, I work for a major computer company, and I'm a manager, so that's my day job. I don't talk much about my spearfishing, so they're kind of surprised sometimes when they either run across the TV show or hear about it. So I feel like I have my day job and my weekend job.
That's got to be funny for someone who's just working with you, and then they come across, hey, I work with that woman.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
neat.
In fact, one of my employees wrote me a note because she saw my Facebook and she said, "Wow, you seem too mild-mannered to be a spearfisher."
Ah, see?
I said, "Well."
There you go. Now, do you ever take people from work with you? Do they ever say, you got to show me how to do this?
No one has asked. I think it's the whole shark thing. A lot of people are intimidated by it.
Yeah.
No one. I haven't. Yeah. No one from work, but I would certainly. There are other people that I like taking, especially kids that are just learning.
Yeah, that's always the best, is seeing the enthusiasm of a child. And those of us who do pursue hunting, fishing, and trapping, and all things that great outdoors, we retain that sense of childlike wonder about the world. And that's what I tell people. You'll always feel this way if you continue doing it. Producing a television show like yours, it has to be hard work. Can you give us a rundown of an episode shoot?
Yeah. You're right. It's a lot harder than it looks, and especially hunting. Hunting's usually the best hunting you do is usually when you're solo, right? Because you need to be stealthy, and here you have it's hard enough to get a fish sometimes, but having a cameraman right behind you makes it doubly hard. But normally my job actually is to pick the people and the locations, the guests, and I put a lot of thought into it because we need to maximize our chances of success. So I pick a time of the year and a place where I know there's fish and a person that I know can produce. And we have 2 underwater cameramen, and we just go out and see what we can get that day.
Isn't it amazing? And then there's a lot of editing that goes right into that. Amazing, because it looks like in a half-hour show, wow, there's fish everywhere, but a lot of times you're doing a lot of looking.
Yeah, quite true. Right. Yeah. Sometimes we worry because we've gone the whole day and we really haven't gotten much, and then we get in something towards the end. It's very unpredictable. So from that standpoint, you can't control the weather, you can't control Mother Nature or the fish. There's so much, but that's also what makes it exciting is you don't know what you're going to get that day.
Do you do any, or does anybody do any freshwater spear gun fishing?
You know what? They're renewing us another year, and that's on my list that we're going to go do a lake.
All right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I have never done it, by the way, so I'm excited to try it.
Well, see, now that might get more people involved. There's no sharks.
Yeah.
You'll be all set. Spear Gun Hunter on the Outdoor Channel. It begins in January. You can get the DVD of the season that was just passed on Outdoor Channel's website. And also, you can find out more about Sheri Daye at thebluewild.com. Tell us about thebluewild.com.
Yeah, I started about 4 years ago just because I knew so many personalities in diving and spearfishing. I put together a little seminar. The objective was just to raise a little money for my brother's school. It's a center for the developmentally disabled, so it was all for a nonprofit. But it was so popular that I've continued it, and I do it every year now.
Excellent.
It's a fun time.
I bet it is. So what adventures lie ahead for you, Sheri? What are some things that you have on your to-do list?
Well, I'm looking forward to the 6th season of Spear Gun Hunter and just choosing some more, some different locations. We've been to all the obvious ones, so I'm trying to think of some really different and exotic type things.
Well, we'll be there with you. It's a great show. Spear Gun Hunter with Sheri Daye and her great group on the Outdoor Channel. We'll see you there.